Yes, Tara's about to work really hard, and I'm here with my personality, as always.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Off to Broadway, the podcast where we deep dive into anything and everything musical theater. I'm Tara.
I'm Stefania.
And in today's episode, it's part 1 of the Tony nominations, which I feel like, is this the first time we've recorded on the actual day of the Tony nominations?
Maybe. That's because it's a school night now, and that's why we're not having our customary, cider along with it. With this
school night. It's 2 30-year-old women. No, the real answer is because, guys, I'm so tired. We've had a crazy 10 days. We're recording on Thursday, May 1st, the day of the Tony nominations. We got back on Monday. But before that, we saw a show last Tuesday. Then we saw 9 shows in New York. Then we got back and recorded a podcast episode. And then last night we saw A Strange Loop in Toronto. And here we are tonight to record 2 episodes. And I have a lot of editing to do, is where we're headed right now.
Yes, Tara's about to work really hard, and I'm here with my personality, as always.
But yeah, this is part 1 of our Tony nominations. You'll hear part 2 next week. We split these up now because we just have a lot to say. And especially this year, we have so much to say because we just, as I said, came off of a New York trip where we saw 9 shows, and many of these are nominated for Tony Awards. So we have fresh perspective. We are also going to be looking back at our way too early Tony nominations from February. And yeah, here we are.
I'm excited. I'm actually really excited because this is the first time I've been to New York in the spring. I'd actually never been in the spring before. I've always been fall. I've always been a fall or summer traveler. So this is the first time I've seen so many of the musicals before Tony nominations, before the Tony Awards. So I personally think we've seen the best musical winner.
Same. Also, we should say that week pre-Tonys, which I said last year when I went that week pre-Tonys, is the time to go because no slips all week.
Yeah, it was we were nervous people were going to be out, but not a single person was out. Maybe some swings in the ensemble. Not that I don't love to see an understudy, but all principal casts were in because they were trying to get those voters in. And they were there for us, actually, also.
Yeah. Well, we were there. The final show that we saw was, the final day of eligibility, which was on April 27th. Yeah. So we were there for the deadline. And we are going to start off this first part of Tony nominations with the acting categories. And we normally start with actress, so I think we should start with actress because this is actually my biggest upset, I think, of the entire Tonys, even though I'm thrilled with everybody that's nominated. So it's a weird position that we're in here. So do you want to give us the nominees?
For Best Actress in a Musical, what I will say before we start and go into the nominees, this is the best season in years. In terms of
according to you and me.
No, but I actually do think this is true. I think this is such a strong season, and shows that are, again, literally snubbed this year and performances that are snubbed this year could have won last year, could have won the past few years. So it's a really
maybe not Redwood.
Season. Well, they're so true.
Snubbed this year.
I don't know if they were snubbed, but I love when a woman has a passion project. Okay, here we go. Best Leading Actress in a Musical. We have to start, and this is in alphabetical order.
Which was so scary this morning when it was in alphabetical order for so many people involved. We'll get there in actor category.
We have to start with Megan Hilty in Death Becomes Her. Next, Audra McDonald in Gypsy. Jasmine Amy Rogers in Boop, the musical. Nicole Scherzinger in Sunset Boulevard. And Jennifer Simard in Death Becomes Her.
Who I learned this morning from Sarah Paulson that it's Scherzinger, and we've all been saying it wrong.
Scherzinger.
She said it 3 times. She was like, it's really hard to be the person that announces the nominees because you're always saying people's last names wrong. But I checked on this one,
she checked.
Nicole.
Okay. Did she check with Nicole?
I'm not sure. Maybe she, those things on YouTube when you look up pronouncers. Maybe it was that. No, I think for this category, we obviously knew that the 2 would be there, which is Nicole and Audra, and then it kind of was a mess from there. I really bombed this category in February. I had Redwood star Idina Menzel nominated in this category. I think we both had Natasha Hodgson from Operation Mincemeat nominated in this category. And I also believe we both had Helen J. Shen from Maybe Happy Ending. Not. Oh, you did
I had 4 of the 5. I had Natasha Hodgson, and instead Jennifer Samard got in. Otherwise, 4 to 5 for me.
Wow. You know what? I think I do remember you saying that, like, you would swap your young nominee of Helen J. Shen for Jasmine Amy Rogers.
And that's kind of how it ended up. There was, like, 1 slot for the Ingenue, the Broadway debut.
Yes. Is it the right person?
We had the opportunity to see both Jasmine Amy Rogers and Helen J. Shen in their shows.
We've actually seen everybody but Audra.
We did see everyone but Audra. Which is actually crazy, but like, what choices that we made. I think they both do an amazing job in their shows. I think what Jasmine Amy Rogers is doing is a lot showier and a lot more obvious. Like, she has a lot more to kind of show that she is performing, and that show is really, like, carried on the back of her kind of, like, charisma as Betty Boop. What Helen J. Shen is doing is a lot more subtle in Maybe Happy Ending. I actually do think she is the heart of that show, especially because of the 2 robots. She is the more human-like one. Mm-hmm. And I loved her performance in it. Her voice is stunning, and her performance was, like, really, really beautiful. But I do think in that show itself, Darren Criss has the showier part. And then if you're comparing it to the other nominees, they all are doing kind of a lot. And Helen's performance is so much, like, a little bit quieter and subtler. And so it's hard to know, what we're looking for.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. I think, though, again, I loved all of the performances that we saw, the 4 of the 5, women that were nominated for Best Leading Actress in a Musical. However, I feel like it is a little disappointing to leave out the subtle character. Like, Megan Hilty and Jen Samard are battling each other all show long for the spotlight. So, like, those 2 are the most over-the-top characters. Nicole is doing the most every single night at Sunset Boulevard. Jasmine Amy Rogers is so animated in Boop. We don't know what Audra's doing, but I can guarantee that she is up there being Audra McDonald. So to have all of those kind of be the same kind of performance, and then you have
I don't know about the same, but they are all very loud.
I'm talking the same in, like, big performance-wise. I find it, like, a little disappointing to, like, knock out the subtle character who I think is one of the best that we saw out of the 9 shows that we saw this trip. I think that she is giving a better performance than Darren Criss. And I do think that, like, based on, like, critic reviews and everything that came out today, like, this is the number 1 snub of the votes this season. So it's interesting. She's so young. Like, I said this to you this weekend, that, like, that girl will have such a long career ahead of her because she is a star. Patti LuPone thinks that she is a star.
She is a star.
So this is a situation that, like, a nomination doesn't mean that your career is over, obviously, but I do think for someone that's, like, a young woman having a Broadway debut in the industry, like, it must be disappointing for her as well.
Yeah. Absolutely, especially because the show was one of the most nominated things. It was nominated in almost every category it was eligible, except for Best Actress in a Musical. Again, what I will say, though...
And feature.
It's just yeah, I guess, but they don't really have that much to do.
We knew, but, like, they could have been considered, I guess.
I guess they could have been, but they don't have enough to do, in my mind, to really... get in that category. Yeah, I just think it comes down to how tricky a season it is. And this is no shade to Malia Joy Moon from last year, but Helen J. Shen could have won last year. Like, Jasmine Amy Rogers could have won last year, I think. I just think
and
it's
all this
so
to
much
say,
stronger.
None of this matters because it's still Audra versus Nicole at the end of the day.
I know. The other 3 are just kind of, the nomination is the award. I still think it's going to be Nicole.
I agree. Yeah.
I just think the narrative is there, and I just think there's been so much excitement around this production. And I do think it's lost a little bit of steam, this production of Sunset Boulevard, just by opening in the fall. But what hasn't is Nicole, and Nicole's like powerhouse performance in this. So I think she's safe here.
Well, you know, the other day with her on the megaphone, I think revived Sunset Boulevard's life a little bit on social media, so.
I do, like, she does come across as so committed to this production and also so grateful to be on Broadway here. So I think that comes across well, and I think the voters will appreciate that.
Her Actors on Actors also just came out with Jonathan Groff. So, like, we're still trying to make her, I think, a part of the conversation, which is great. But I agree. I still think this is Nicole's. Although, I would be happy with a Megan Hilty upset, so...
Love Megan Hilty. But we have to talk... Megan Hilty was snubbed for the Drama Desk. Like...
Yes, and you had said that there were, like, other precursors that had led to Jen Simard being the only person nominated, and then, obviously, surprised they both were.
Yeah, what the Outer Critics Circle, isn't it just like a long list?
It's just distinguished performer. I don't really know what that means. Because, like, Nick Jonas got nominated, and as we know, the last 5 years blanked this nomination for the Tonys, so...
Outstanding Lead Performer in a Broadway Musical has Jennifer Simard, but no Megan Hilty. Which is, again, crazy because I love both of them in that show. I think they're both just so kooky in it in such a fun way. But Megan does have more to do in terms of a lead performance than Jennifer Simard does. They probably are both lead,
she is the star. Yeah.
Yeah, she is. What is
in
she,
terms
Helen
of
Sharp?
like, no, she's Madeline.
No, she's Madeline. She's Madeline Ashton.
Yeah, I saw a tweet. Shout out to Broadway Ben on TikTok. It's Raining Ben on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. He said when I asked for a Helen nomination, I didn't mean Helen Sharp. So.
Well, I meant her too. I meant them both.
Yeah, I think, like, I hope that they play into this at the Tony Awards, that, like, these two are still fighting for, like, the number one spot in the spotlight. That would be kind of fun. I'm, like, so excited to see what they choose for Tony performance. We'll talk more about Death Becomes Her when we get to later categories. But I think it's exciting that they're both here. It's a hard season this year, so a lot of great women, and, yeah, there's a cap on... nominee spots this year for ties, and I believe they hit their cap with Best Actor in a Play and Best Actor in a Musical, which both have 6 nominations.
So I believe the actual cap is 7. So I believe the rule is if you have more than 9 eligible nominees in a category, you hit 5 there's going to be 5 nominees. If you're 5 and 6 are in a tie, and it doesn't mean an exact tie, it's within like a specific margin, then you can get up to 6 and potentially up to 7. No one got up to 7, and we have a few categories get up to 6, but for the most part, we stuck at 5.
Again, back to all that to say that we did have a tie in quotations in the actor category, which we'll go to now, which is the Best Actor in a Musical. If this was a 5 out of 5 category, I would have gotten perfect. But that 6 nominee got in there and gave Jeremy Jordan a bit of an anxiety attack this morning because of the alphabetical order. So please give us the Best Actor in a Musical nominees.
Okay, our Best Actor in a Musical nominees are Darren Criss in Maybe Happy Ending, Andrew Durant in Dead Outlaw, Tom Francis in Sunset Boulevard, Jonathan Groff in Just in Time, James Monroe Iglehart in A Wonderful World, and Jeremy Jordan as Floyd Collins, in Floyd Collins.
Now, the surprise is obviously James Monroe Iglehart because A Wonderful World closed a million years ago.
Yes, in February, I think it closed. So
I think it had closed just before we recorded that way too early episode, which is why we were like, obviously no one will be thinking about this. But everyone is always thinking about James Monroe Iglehart. That man is a Tony darling.
It's so true. And also that was a passion project for him. He also co-directed that show, and he was involved in the development for a long time. So I think it's just a way, honestly, to, you know, show love to someone who is so talented in the industry. And it's nice that it was remembered because so much of, especially theater, because it is something that kind of disappears after it's done, that people have looked back and remembered the work that he did earlier in the year.
There was, Broadway.com was posting some initial reactions on their Instagram page this morning, and his was like, this is a complete shock to me. So, thank you so much.
To us
He's
all.
like, I'm so honored, I'm so humbled, but this is a complete shock.
To us all.
Yeah. Is this a back-to-back year for Jonathan Groff? Is this a first Tony for Jeremy Jordan? Is this a first Tony for Tom Francis? Is this a first Tony for Andrew Durand? Like, what do we think is happening here?
Okay, I'm going to rule out some people here. I think it's not going to go to James Monroe Iglehart. Sorry.
Agree.
I also
That's the hardest decision of the day.
The hardest decision of the day. I also think, as much as I adore Jonathan Groff in Just in Time,
Oh, really?
I don't think he's gonna
You're
win.
counting him out this early. You're not even going through the other ones first.
I'm going backwards. I don't think he's going to win. I think, the musical was not nominated for Best New Musical, and I think that just kind of speaks to... I think he got nominated because he is so adored, he is so loved, and he's giving a wonderful performance.
He's doing a great job, yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think they're going to reward a performance in one of the hot shows of the season. Mm-hmm. Okay, and this is kind of where it gets tricky, because... Again, saw the rest of these 4 performances and thought all of them were great. I had picked Tom Francis in January as my winner.
Me too. Yeah.
Sunset Boulevard Playbill. I worry he's been forgotten at this time. I think the time has been too long.
I also picked Tom Francis in February when we recorded, but I also had a moment during that episode when I was like, is it his year?
Yes, we did talk about... Where is mine?
That was Floyd Collins for audio only listeners.
Is it Jeremy Jordan's year? Maybe. I don't know.
Floyd Collins got a lot more love than I thought it would get for the Tonys
Fully agree.
this morning.
Fully agree on that, and we'll get to that. Fully agree on that. What I will say is I do think reviews on his performance have been a bit more mixed.
On his performance?
Yes. Then I would say some of the other performances that we are going to get to here.
I mean, Andrew Durand out of the question here because everybody is obsessed with Doubt Outlaw, but I did not read a single bad review on Jeremy Jordan specifically. I read mixed reviews on Floyd Collins, but everyone's saying this is a sensational performance by Jeremy Jordan specifically. So I don't know that I think the show itself got a lot of mix, but he got more praise than he's seen in a long time.
For sure. I do think this is, a really good... showcase for him. I don't want to give away necessarily what we're going to talk about in our Floyd Collins episode, but...
Wow, it sounds like you're about to be a hater.
I'm not about to be a hater. I think he did a really great job in this show. I think it honestly comes down to what speaks to you in the production of Floyd Collins versus what doesn't. And what spoke to me more was the above the ground stuff, and what speaks to some people is the below the ground stuff. I worry that Floyd's journey is not enough. I worry that other characters have more journeys in the show than his character does. And that's my critique. Jeremy Jordan, though, the most beautiful voice.
Mm-hmm. And really sounds amazing at the Beaumont.
It really sounds amazing. Did you see the tweet where there are 3 Seymours from the same Little Shop production in this category? Because we have Darren Criss, we have Jonathan Groff, and we have Jeremy Jordan. They all played Seymour in the...
Why do I not remember Darren Criss being a Seymour? Who was his Audrey?
That's a great question.
I have no memory of that. I remember Jonathan Groff for sure because obviously we saw him.
Yeah, we saw him. That's when he saw him.
Jeremy Jordan, I remember because he replaced. I'm pretty sure he was Jonathan's replacement right away because he did it with Tammy Blanchard as well.
I don't think he replaced right away because I think Gideon Glick did it right away.
Oh, true. Yeah, Gideon.
And then I don't know if Jeremy was after that. Evan Rachel Wood and Darren Criss.
Wow, that was blocked from my memory.
This was in 2024. This was not that long ago. This was 1 year ago.
There's been so many Seymours though in 1 year.
So many. Before him was Matt Doyle, Conor Okamura, Skylar Aston, Rob McClure.
Yeah, exactly. There's been so many Seymours in 1 year in my memory.
I know. So yeah, 3 Seymours from this production. All nominated in one category.
And 2 Glee cast members.
So true. So true.
Okay, let's talk about Darren Criss while we're here.
Let's talk about Darren Criss.
This is the first time we've seen him on stage, I believe.
Yeah, I've never seen him perform live.
You know what? I did see him perform on stage in the Glee concert in Toronto.
Not the Glee concert
many years ago.
Glee concert tour.
But he is returning to the Belasco. He did a run there as Hedwig and the Angry Inch years ago, and my brother saw that, loved him in that. Darren plays a really great robot. You and I were both beside ourselves when we saw pictures of his eyebrows today because we were too far to see that.
The obstructed the eyebrows. It's giving 2016 Anastasia hip brow.
It's really heavy. It's a really heavy
like brow blindness. Do you see on TikTok when it's like, do you have brow blindness? That's what Oliver has in Maybe Happy Ending. His makeup is crazy close up. But it doesn't. But it looks great, like on stage. Yeah, it just gives him kind of like a plasticky looking face, which like works well for him being a robot. This was the sweetest show, and part of that I think comes down to, we already spoke about Helen J. Shen, but Darren Chris's portrayal of Oliver, his like innocence, his sweetness, you know, to portray this kind of like robotic, like non-human falling in love and like kind of experiencing human emotions. He does a really great job in this. He's also a producer on this show. He's kind of like helped shepherd it to Broadway. So I wonder if people will take that into account in the way that, like, I think that really helped James Merle Iglehart get into this category as well. He's great in this.
He is giving a less subtle performance than Helen does, but for me, it's like not even the speaking that he does. It's his like physical actions that made me cry without even him like opening his mouth and saying anything. There's like a couple of moments in that show that just, you don't need words. It's just what he's doing that is so emotionally impactful. It's hard because, again, like, place this show in a different year, it sweeps. Like, that's the thing. And it might. It still might this year because, like, I think a lot of people, this is a show that opened in the fall, so it's open really early. There was a time, do you remember, when Maybe Happy Ending was in, like, true jeopardy? Like, this show was not going to last months ago.
The word of mouth on this show has just picked it back up. Also, I think, who is it, Catherine Ryan?
Yeah, shout out to Catherine Quinn.
Catherine Quinn, like doing social media, I think.
She was hired, I believe, in the winter to head up their social media. She did Gatsby, like, marketing. Yeah. She has her own marketing company. And I honestly think that she, you know, like, we always talk about, specifically, like, back to The Outsiders for a second, how the fans took that show over the edge.
The power of the fans.
That's happening here, too. The helper bots are all over social media. They did that, like, cast album listening party that everybody was posting about. Like, they're doing the right things to keep people interested in this show. And, like, randomly, I mean, maybe not randomly, but, like, the weekend that we were there, it was so sold. That show was, like, so sold.
Nervous. We honestly moved around what our plan was to
because it was such high priority,
because we really wanted to see this, to try and get it in earlier in the week, just in case something happened. We were planning on doing it as our last show of the weekend, just based on timing, which LOL
didn't even matter.
Didn't even matter. Our flight got canceled on the way home. It was chaos. We were really worried about making our flight that got canceled. So we made it. Okay, we did make our flight. That was the next day at a different airport. So we like moved it around to do it earlier in the week to make sure that we saw this, because this was like number one priority of the whole week.
And that weekend was so sold out. So.
Yeah, because like the Sunday was crazy. The rush tickets are really obstructed. Like,
that is probably the main critique. Again, I think we'll talk about this in our second part of the episode when we talk a little bit about set design, but something that we have been telling people online is that, like, if you're interested in seeing a full view of the show, like, you got to buy a ticket in advance. So and that's hard to say because, like,
these prices are about to go up
100%. And also, like, of our 9 shows, yes, one was free, but we only spent $300 per person, which is wild. Crazy. That's not even $100. It's an average of $33 a ticket. This is probably the best I think I've ever done on tickets in New York.
Oh, yeah.
So
really helped by the one press ticket, but also we really
hustled for this. When you think about that, like, and thinking about what we're saying right now of if you want to see the best view, you got to buy a full price ticket. Those full price tickets, like, I think the cheapest in the theater is like $119. So
I had seen before we were going, I was looking because I knew about the sight lines. I'd seen some rear orchestra at $94. Depends on like what day of the week, if it's a matinee, evening. So
the Belasco's hard though because the polls are up there. So
no, it was a lot of people. I think it was like rear orchestra. I think it was like $94.
Oh, rear orchestra. Yeah, it's just know that if you're in a rush line, if you're getting a lottery ticket for maybe Happy Ending, it will say partial obstructed. It is a full obstruction.
It's obstructed.
Unless you get super lucky and it's not a full show that day and you can move yourself over. But we were in a jam-packed house that night, so we unfortunately were just stuck on the side of the orchestra. Again,
and that's the risk you take.
Didn't impact me emotionally, but Sightline impacted me 100%. So... It is.
Yeah, when we got home, I was like on Instagram looking at like production photos. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
That's what that is. Yeah, you know what? We'll see it when they do the when they talk about the shows that are nominated for Best Musical and they run the clip. We'll be like, oh my god, didn't see that.
Never saw that. Okay.
And then obviously got to end it with not him. We didn't even talk about Tom Francis.
Did we talk about Tom Francis? We talked about him a little bit at the beginning. Where we said,
you know what? Go listen to our Sunset Boulevard episode and also our Way Too Early 20 nominations
I think he's
episode.
so good. I think Tom Francis is so good in this. But yeah, I do think maybe it's like opening the fall, the momentum didn't stay the way it did for Nicole.
We did miss the walk. We tried
to see the walk. We ran after Dead Outlaw, we ran down the street to try and see the walk. That was the day it was canceled.
The show was
canceled.
She sang
on the megaphone. And we're like running down the street to try and see the walk. Canceled. Didn't even happen.
And then maybe Happy Ending. We also, I knew when we were in the show that we weren't going to make it. It was over. But we still went to go see it, and obviously we didn't see it. But the barricades were out that time, so the walk did happen that night. We just weren't there.
We just missed the walk. Okay, the final performance.
Our last nominee.
Andrew Durand. Dead Outlaw.
Now, I have to say, because, I put this man in my Way Too Early Tony nominations, and that was based on, I'm pretty sure, the performance that I saw him do in Shucked, because I loved him in Shucked. He is such a great performer in general, but I think what is obviously so interesting about this show in general, this is going to make no sense to anybody that doesn't know what Dead Outlaw is about, but this man stands in a coffin for 45 minutes and does not really move. And
that's acting.
That's acting. And we were blessed to be 4 rows away from him while he was doing this. So we really saw all of the facial expressions that he was or wasn't giving. We will talk more about this as we go through, but we absolutely love Dead Outlaw. Is his non-movement enough to get him a win here?
Yeah, I think this is really tricky. And as we even go to featured actress, where the show got a nomination.
2 men stuck on stage for a long time.
I was thinking a lot about this, and we're not doing a specific New York recap, but I was thinking about the parallels between all of the shows, and thinking about so many, not every single one, but the majority of the shows, one of the core themes that they were exploring was our own mortality, our own relationship with death, what it means to live and what it means to die. And from Dead Outlaw to Just in Time to Floyd Collins, even Sunset Boulevard.
Maybe not Boop, but
maybe not Boop, maybe not Smash, but Operation Mincemeat even. All of these
maybe at the workshop of Smash.
Maybe the workshop of Smash. But what it means to die, and Dead Outlaw the most, honestly, because they keep saying, everyone's dead, and so are you. Because so true. What Andrew Durand did here is absolutely crazy. I don't think he's going to win, though.
No, I don't either, because we had talked about this, all weekend. We were trying to predict who would be nominated, because, we were seeing things and trying to predict immediately after we saw them. And I think his first half,
I would say a third even of the show.
Yeah, was so strong. Vocally, he's really strong in this show. But then as soon as he gets into that coffin, he stays there until basically the end of the show and doesn't do anything.
What a physical feat.
But he's also doing the most.
What a physical feat for him to stand there as that dead body, and then you watch him decompose. He does that with his body. He's
amazing.
You crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's also really interesting because in awards last year, because it was off Broadway at the Audible Theater last year, that Jeb Brown was also in the lead actor category. However, he's in featured, where he did get nominated, but he was bumped, not down, but to featured, which kind of messed a lot of things up, honestly. Sorry to Tom Sesma.
That final, so true. That final ruling came out on Monday this week, which is when we found out about the Andrew Durand, Jeb Brown situation.
And that you know, is Jeb Brown the dead outlaw? No. But he is working in that show, and I wonder what would have happened if we left him here.
Yeah, it's true.
'Cause
Okay,
I
so
think
for that...
he just has more to do. I don't know.
Who's your winner? Are you keeping who you had before?
Okay, I think my winner is between these two.
Really?
I
Tom's
do.
out?
I do think Tom might be out.
Oh,
Okay,
sorry, I love you,
gonna,
Tom.
I do love you, Tom. You're so cute. You're so talented. You carried that show. But I think I'm gonna go no, sorry, I lied. I think I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna
go here with Jeremy Jordan. I think I agree with you on the journey part of it. However, Jeremy's been here.
No,
I know
Jeremy's
for a while. And
I know Jeremy's been here. This is what, his second Tony nomination? He was nominated for Newsies, I believe.
Yes. And even though, like, we talk about all the time, you know, like, people leaving and people that are so, like, dedicated to the theater, I do have to say, like, this man is dedicated to the craft, for sure. He always comes back, which I really appreciate when people come back. And reading his Instagram caption today, this obviously means a lot to him. Watching the video that I believe Ashley was filming this morning,
must have been.
You could just tell, because obviously there's 6 nominees here, that the sigh of relief that he had when his name was said, like, this as the 6th in the alphabetical order, like, this means a lot to him. Not that I don't think it means a lot to anybody else, but I just think he's been here, he's been around, and I think a lot of people in the theater community are probably behind him on this one. So I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be interesting.
We will see.
You know what's most important here? David Hyde Pierce is not here. That's what's most important. Although I've heard that Pirates is really fun.
Sorry to Pirates, the Penzance musical. You're out.
Well, they got a nomination for Revival, but they're out from this.
One nomination.
We have to move on. So let's move on to... I mean, we just talked about Jeb Brown, so let's move on to Best Featured Actor in a Musical. Okay. These are the categories, we say this every year, that the Way Too Early is, like, so chaotic because we don't know where anybody is placed.
Featured is the trickiest. Featured is so hard.
So why don't you give us our Featured Actor in a Musical nominees?
Okay, in alphabetical order again. Best Performance by a Featured Actor in a Musical. We have Brooks Ashmanskas in Smash. Jeb Brown, Dead Outlaw. Danny Burstein, Gypsy. Jack Malone, Operation Mincemeat. Taylor Trench, Floyd Collins.
The Taylor Trench Floyd Collins nomination was one that at intermission, I turned to you and said, he's getting nominated. Like, it's so interesting because, again, you'll hear this in our literal next episode of Floyd Collins, that I believe, like, your opinion is this story is kind of Taylor's character story told through his perspective. Yeah. This is Taylor's first nomination.
Crazy.
The amount... That man is booked and busy all the time. But
he's always in a show.
The amount of people that I follow on Instagram, actor-wise, that posted about Taylor today was so exciting because everybody wants this for him. Even Jeremy Jordan's, like, Instagram caption shouted out Taylor specifically because he is... I believe, like, on and off stage, everybody's favorite person. His
so
Broadway
funny.
His Broadway.com, like, initial reactions was just like, hey, this is what I look like. I look pretty bad today, but, like, cool. And he didn't even say that he was honored to be nominated. All he said was, like, I'm so happy for the show. I'm so happy for Jeremy. I'm so happy for our writers. I'm so happy for, you know, all of the nominations that they got. He's so humble. He's such an amazing actor. It was so, like, great to actually see him perform on stage, and he is giving everything in Floyd Collins. So is that enough to win? Probably not, but, like, I love you, Taylor Trench.
I'm a Taylor Trench lover. So random, but going back to after we saw Gatsby at ART, which he was not in, I was obsessed with listening to all Taylor Trench interviews online, which I gotta be honest, there's not that many. Like, no. I was deep in the internet, and I was not finding much, but I just think he's, like, the funniest person, and I think he's so talented. I love how distinct his voice is, and I really, like, yes, like the way I feel that Floyd's journey is not depicted as well. I really feel like Skeets Miller's journey is like the one that you as an audience are truly following and kind of relating to throughout this show. So I think it's a really great role. And I had listened to the cast album, but I hadn't seen Floyd Collins before, so I didn't even realize, honestly,
who he was.
Pivotal a role he was.
Yeah, it's a great role for him. You did have Jason Gote on your way too early list,
and I did believe I said
it was a Heart nominee.
I did say it was a Heart nominee. Like I didn't think it was gonna happen, but I did.
But he was so good in it. He was really good in it.
He was really good. So sweet in it.
Yeah. I think it's funny because you and I both picked Danny Burstein to win, and that man is like not gonna win this award.
I thought he was
gonna
get nominated. I really didn't think it was gonna happen here.
Wait, Chris Sieber's not nominated, right?
No, Christopher Sieber's not nominated.
Yeah.
I'm
trying to think who else.
Dead Outlaw, but like I'm fine with that. He's so fine in Death Becomes Her. So much death. He was so fun in Death Becomes Her, but I'm fine with him missing it here. I do love him though. When I told my mom we were seeing Death Becomes Her, I'm like, Mom, you know who's in it? In Company, the couple who does the workout and then the karate, I'm like, they're both in it because
together
favorite, like together. I was like, that was her favorite scene. She like loved Jennifer Samard in Company, and she loved Christopher Sieber in Company. I'm like, they're both in it, and Ivy Lynn from Smash.
Yes, exactly.
And a member of Destiny's Child. Anyway,
let's talk about Operation Mincemeat and Jack Malone here. For
Olivia
a second,
winning Jack Malone.
Olivia winning. For a second this morning, before nominations even came out, I was like, is Mincemeat gonna blank here? Because they had only... The way that they announced the Tony nominations is so bizarre. First of all, they do like the first 6 categories on CBS this morning, and then the rest of them are on like the Tony Awards YouTube page. And at that point,
like 30 minutes later, I was so confused.
Tech issues. There was tech issues this morning. Well, that's why I messaged you, because I was watching like CBS this morning, and they did not make a graphic big enough for 6 male actors in a musical.
Template. And they didn't.
So
You're like,
the
no,
template
Jeremy.
was
like,
up on screen, and I was like, no, Jeremy. And then they were like, and Jeremy Jordan. I was like, you can't even write his name on there? Like, so rude. Anyway, so when they didn't announce Natasha Hodgson, we weren't sure on David Cumming. I think we were
I had picked him previously, but...
hot and cold. Right.
Yeah.
But after seeing it, we didn't really know where this would lie.
It has not landed in the US the way that it landed in the UK, and I just really think it's like a cultural differences.
Yes. It has not landed with me specifically.
It has not landed. Yeah, I can't say I had an amazing time watching it. I will say that I did listen to the cast album when we got home, and I was like, oh, I like this. This is actually good. And I do wish I had maybe listened to it before we had gone. So that is my potential advice to anyone who hasn't seen it, who wants to see it, to like do a run through of the cast album first.
It's interesting. We talked about this yesterday, but I had read a lot on Reddit about people saying that like the cast album is leaps and bounds better than the show, which is kind of a problem these days, I think, because you listen to something, you love it, and then you see it on stage, and you're like, that's not what I thought it was going to be. The music. Yeah. Does this
that's kind of
hard.
Like serve the music and the writing?
Exactly. Do I love this nomination for Jack Malone? Like, not necessarily. However, I do think the character that he plays primarily of Hester, is that the person's name?
Yeah.
Is to me like one of the better characters within that group of mincemeat people. I think that everybody talking about this song, Dear Bill, is a little overhyped. I think it's just different than anything else that's on that cast recording, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it's like the greatest musical theater song I've heard. So that's what a lot of people are like, you gotta go see this show for this one song. And I'm like, I don't know that you need to go see this show for that one song. You can probably listen to it on the cast recording and get the same vibe that we got in person. But yeah, I think you had said that like Mincemeat would probably be nominated in a lot of categories and not win anything back in February, but this was the one that you did give to him as a win. So
I did, because again, he won the Olivier for this.
But so did Tom Francis, and you just kicked him out.
I did. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, this is vibes based. This is vibes based only. I don't know if he's gonna win here. I have a different winner that we'll get to in a second. Yes, here's what I think. I think Jack Malone, of all of the performers, of the 5 performers in Operation Mincemeat, to me, he is the one who flipped between characters the most effectively.
Agreed.
Probably because he has, like, the very specific role in Hester, and then he'll flip to, like, the submarine captain, and then he's also the, like, American soldier.
He's switching accents a lot.
Yes, and I really enjoyed that aspect of his performance the most. I also really like Natasha Hodgson in this, but I just don't think this, like, landed the way that it landed in the UK, which is fine. It's good. Like, I'm happy it came. I'm happy we saw it.
I don't even know if I would say it's good. I think it's fine. Like, period. Like,
I think it's creative. I think it's interesting. I think it's, like, trying something.
Yeah. Sure.
And that is what
this is also coming from Steph, who slept through almost half of Act 1.
Let's talk about this. Okay, 'cause I had 3 hours of sleep, and I just drifted off briefly.
Girl, same.
I know. I struggle though. I drifted off briefly in Act 1.
No, I think it was more than you thought. I watched that head bob.
No, I know. I was tired.
Time.
I made it through all of Act 2. I gotta be honest. I made it through all of Act 2.
You did.
I only had a Coke earlier in the day. It's hard. Okay. It's hard, guys.
Before we move to the winner, we do have to talk about Smash here.
Do we?
We do because they only have like 2 nominations and this is one of them. So we do have to talk about Smash here because I also will stand by this that without Brooks, this show is nothing. So that's why he's nominated.
No, look, I love Brooks Ashmanskas. I love The Prom. I just find him a delightful actor. We saw him earlier this season. This is the second time we saw him this season because we saw him Once Upon a Mattress. Like, I'm kind of asleep. Like, I'm bored of the same thing.
I think he only has one thing because to me, this is the exact character that he played in The Prom.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, like, I don't think you always need to completely transform yourself in a performance. Like, you are hired.
Any transformation?
No, I don't think. But like, you are hired to bring what you do best to roles, and sometimes what you do best is one thing. But like, I'm so asleep. Anyway, I didn't really like Smash, so that's that.
No, same. But you know who was eating up his performance? The audience. So
I know the audience was cackling. I'm like, guys. The
only things that I laughed at was his stuff and the other guy. Loved him. John
Jerry
Bellum, is that his name in real life, I believe? Yeah, Jerry.
Jerry Duty?
Yeah. He was good to me. Everybody else was just kind of like mid. Smash is like a mess. They should have kept their original workshop and killed Ivy. That's all I have to say.
Like, just try something
different.
Like, kooky. Like, do something crazy. This was just kind of like... Anyway, we'll talk about it later.
All this to say, our winner is Jeb Brown.
I loved him so much. He walked out on stage and started singing, and I thought, what a voice. Like, this voice is crazy.
I've never heard of him before either. This is the first time I've heard of him.
Should I click on his Wikipedia page?
I mean, the program is in front of my face. I can just read it.
Who did he play in? He must have been...
He was in Beautiful, the Carole King musical. He was in Ring of Fire, Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark, High Fidelity.
Yeah.
I'm Not Rappaport, Aida, Grease. He's been around. Off-Broadway faves. He was in television and film for Little America, The Namesake, The Path, The Good Fight, Star Trek, EXO, Elise and Eleanor.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at other theater credits. He played Vince Fontaine in the 2007 Grease, which is the one with, like, Laura Osnes and Max Crumb. Yes. He was Mary Jane's father / ensemble / the Norman Osborn Green Goblin understudy in Spider-Man. He originated the role of music publisher Don Kirshner in Beautiful, the Carole King musical. Okay, he's working.
I read all of these to you.
But I'm giving more detail. I loved him so much in this. He is our narrator. He guides us through the story. He also plays characters. He kind of really just, to me, he is, I mean, Andrew Durand is doing what he's doing, but Jeb Brown is, you know,
I think he only plays that one character.
Yes.
He plays that one guy, yeah. He's like the bank robber person that tries to get him siblings on the train. Yeah.
Help.
He's in jail
to get
with
Elmer McCurdy. Yeah, he meets him in jail. Tries to get Elmer McCurdy to help him, like, explode safes.
Because it says band leader / Jared.
Band leader / Jared. Yeah, he's just so good in the show. I loved him so much in this. Justice for Tom Sesma. Natalie would, Natalie won't. Like I
had Eddie Cooper on my list, who has an amazing song. Yeah, it's the supporting roles in this show are so good, which I think leads us to our next category, which is featured actress in a musical. Because Dead Outlaw is here too, and this is one that we didn't think would necessarily be here. But before we get to her, please give us the alphabetical nominees.
We have Best Performance by a Featured Actress in a Musical. Let's start with Natalie Venetia Belcon from Buena Vista Social Club.
I'd like to say that I was there for that nomination back in February.
Julia Nittell in Dead Outlaw. Gracie Lawrence in Just in Time. Justina Machado in Real Women Have Curves. And Joy Woods in Gypsy. This actually is the category, looking at it now, that I think is the most wide open.
Oh, I don't think so. I think Natalie Venetia Belkin, is that her name?
You think?
Yeah, that's the general consensus, because people were like, as soon as she opened her mouth to sing, that award was hers.
Potentially. I think, can we ever count out
She
Louise?
Also won the Drama Desk.
She won the Drama Desk? Okay, that's important. That's good to know. Can we ever count out a Louise and Gypsy from winning the Tony?
Okay, so I would normally say no. However, I did read an article the other day, and a lot of this Louise has been chopped down. She does not do the striptease like the way that it normally happens.
The long striptease.
And there's a lot of scene work that is cut. So hearing that, I'm like, oh, then what are we doing in this version of Gypsy that we've got?
I'm so curious. We didn't get a chance to see it. It was just too much. And we also recently saw a really wonderful production of Gypsy, so it's like we prioritized new things.
Yeah.
But
sorry, Audra. Maybe I'll see you one day.
I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever see Audra.
No. But we've also heard that people are like, some people love this production, some people hate this production. It's like very mid. It's very mixed reviews on this.
A fairly standard production of Gypsy. What makes it special is Audra McDonald and the kind of added context of the race of the family at the heart.
But what we talked about back in February was that like they don't even really
not enough because they don't change the book.
That. Yeah,
it's very
except for they did change the book for Louise. So like
it sounds like they cut. Like they cut but not add. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. I would agree with you that like Louise is a role that like you would typically win for, but just based on what I recently read, I'm like, oh, maybe you wouldn't win for this. I for some reason don't think that Gypsy's going to do very well at the Tonys this year.
It's possible. It's totally possible. Joy.
All that to say, like, I also don't think that Julia, is that her name, from Dead Outlaw, is going anywhere here. No. She gives a good performance, but it's nothing like the men are giving in the show. It's more quiet and subtle.
I think the show is really loved, and so they kind of nominated it in every acting category that they could, and she's the only woman. I really like what she's doing. I think she's really good in the show. I think everyone's really good in this show. But she kind of the featured actor category for Dead Outlaw just has is so stacked, whereas she's the only one in featured actress there. So they just kind of put Dead Outlaw in every category because the show is a fan fave.
If we're talking about someone who is giving my favorite performance in a featured category, it's Gracie Lawrence in Just in Time.
What a voice. What a voice on her.
She is so good. Like, I had obviously heard her sing a bit of this before we went because we've been watching The Curtain Call, but I am not familiar with the band Lawrence. We famously missed Lawrence opening for the Jonas Brothers when they were here a few years ago in Toronto.
We were still outside buying a ticket when they were singing.
And now I'm upset about that, knowing what I know of her voice. She is an insane singer. She's playing Connie Francis, and I think her vocal tone suits these songs so beautifully. I believe you had Erica Henningsen nominated back in February.
I did.
And
she doesn't have a lot to do.
Seeing those two performances beside each other, the Connie Francis performance is much more showy than the Sandra Dee performance. We obviously haven't seen Buena Vista Social Club, but as a Drama Desk winner there and a musical that people seem to really like,
Yeah, a Best Musical nominee as well.
I think this might be hers.
Natalie Venetia Belcon is best known for originating the role of former child television star Gary Coleman in the Tony Award-winning Broadway musical Avenue Q.
Oh, this is hers. Sorry. I
did not know that. Good for her. Okay, amazing. Yeah, Buena Vista Social Club is like one of the only nominees that I have not taken the time to go in and like listen to the music because it's not an original score. Where I have gone and listened to some Real Women Have Curves. Again, I don't think Justina Machado is going to win here. I think the nomination is the win.
Totally, for sure.
And you know what, Justina, we loved you on Dates with the Stars.
Who's her partner? Was it Sasha?
I think it was Sasha because she's very tiny.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we will see. Yeah, I'll go Joy Woods for fun here just to be contrarian.
Mm-hmm. I had her back in February, but then just reading what I've been reading about after people have seen Buena Vista Social Club, I would just find
I picked Michelle Williams. Oh my goodness, what a snub.
Sorry to her in a princess dress.
Siempre viva. What is it?
Yeah.
Don't say I didn't warn.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my singing.
She was fun.
That show was so fun. That show was an absolute blast. But at the end of the day, it does belong to Megan and Jennifer, and everyone else is an accessory in that show.
The other thing, too, before we move on about Buena Vista Social Club, is that they're getting a special Tony nomination this year as well for the band, I believe. So that's also... And they have a Best Book nomination. They have a Best Music... Do they have a Best Book nomination? Did I make that up? No, I think they do.
The Best Book of a Musical category is the exact same as the Best Musical category.
As the Best New Musical. So... I do think that her writing might be on the wall here for featured. I think she's also the only person nominated acting-wise in these categories.
Yes.
So that also kind of helps that situation. I know we're not talking about plays, but we have to talk about Conrad Ricamora and Cole Escola in...
I'm looking for my... I've got two yellow playbills. It's very confusing right now.
Oh, I don't know where my OG O'Mary playbill is, but
this is my...
Here she is.
Here's my new O'Mary. I've got my old O'Mary somewhere here, too. Let's see.
We love this show.
We went back for a second taste.
I will say, like, it's so funny, but the number one question that I was asked at work when I returned was, how was O'Mary? And I was like, guys, I've already seen O'Mary. Like, why didn't you ask me about this when I saw it the first time? But this is a show that I think is so interesting when we talk about, like, the longevity of it, because obviously this opened in the fall, but it is as hot as it ever was. People are still so obsessed with O'Mary, and obviously for great reason. I don't know if it's going to win in the Best Play category, but I would be really surprised if Cole doesn't take this in the Best Actor category.
I think Cole's going to win Best Actor. Yeah, Best Original Play.
Which is also kind of like not controversial, but controversial because Cole is obviously non-binary, and we still have gender categories for the Tony Awards, they did make Cole pick.
You have to pick, which is so funny.
Yeah.
So crazy, especially like as someone non-binary playing a female character. Fascinating. Where is the Best Play? So it's English, Hills of California, John Proctor is the villain, O'Mary Purpose. That's tricky. That's really tricky. Yeah, I don't know. O'Mary's obviously
Purpose is really good.
I heard Purpose is really good. I heard English was really good.
Hills of California is old, but people were obsessed with it in the fall.
It's a Jez Butterworth who also did like The Ferryman.
It was there when we were there in
the fall.
In October, because I believe it was playing at
was
the
like
Broadhurst. Wasn't it across from Sunset Boulevard?
Yeah, I think you're right that it was at the Broadhurst. He wrote The Ferryman, Jerusalem, so that's also a possibility, but it is, forgotten now. I don't know what's going on with the Pulitzer right now. So, maybe that could impact this as well. But, I don't know. So, those are our acting categories. So, who did you say were your winners? Let's just do a final winner count.
Are Nicole Scherzinger, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
Jeremy Jordan, Jeb Brown, and Natalie Venetia Belcon.
Okay. I will stick with Nicole Scherzinger. I will say Darren Criss. I will go Joy Woods, and close it out again with Jeb Brown. That's where That's how I'm feeling.
And Cola Scola, obviously.
And Cola Scola, yeah. That's the only other category that we're really focusing on.
And Conrad Ricamora, although I don't think Conrad's going to win.
No, I don't think Conrad's going to win. I think, like, Sarah Snook's probably going to win. That's pretty, like, locked up. Featured actor, not Kieran Culkin.
No, not. There were a couple things that I thought were fun on the Gold Derby before we move on to our next. Yeah. Actually, I guess we're wrapping this episode up and then we'll be moving on to our next one. But Gold Derby put out like 22 fascinating facts on the Tony nominations. So the first one is not very fascinating. They just noted that it was very noteworthy names nominated for producing. So like J.J. Abrams is a producer on Sunset Boulevard. Did we know this?
I did not know that. Jennifer Hudson produced Smash.
Yes, she did the pre-show Turn Your Phone Off announcement. 5 shows only received a single Tony nomination: Glengarry Glen Ross, Pirates of the Penzance Musical, The Roommate, Swept Away in a Wonderful World. Among the season's Broadway productions that were completely snubbed are All In, Cult of Love, Elf, Home, Job, The Last 5 Years, Left on 10th, McNeil, Once Upon a Mattress, Othello, Redwood, and Stephen Sondheim's old friends, Tammy Faye. Didn't even talk about you, Tammy Faye, because it was so long ago. Then there was the, return nominees. So like Jonathan Groff, Danya Taymor, who I didn't know directed John Proctor is the villain, but great for Danya.
Yeah, Jonathan Groff is the reigning Tony Award winner. Like,
yes,
what momentum for him.
Derek McLean here again, Justin Peck here again, who you'll hear about in our next episode.
He did Social Club.
2 categories include more than 5 nominees this year due to close voting races, which we touched on earlier. Then we have individuals earned multiple Tony bids this year. So like Will Arnson, who is the writer, songwriter, orchestrator of Maybe Happy Ending. It's giving, what's his name, who won for, what was the Oscar movie this year? Honora, who won every category. Sean Baker. It's giving Sean Baker.
Sean Baker again.
Same with Hugh Park for Maybe Happy Ending. This year, nominee Cara Brown, who's in Purpose, has now been nominated for each Broadway production that she's
4 years in a row, essentially. It's crazy.
And she's so young, which is amazing. The acting snub for Idina Menzel is notable as she previously earned 8 Tony nominations for each of her prior opening credits. So this is the first time she has not been nominated for something that she's been in. Yeah.
Has she been in 8 shows?
I don't know. Is Golden Derby wrong on that?
I'll look this up.
Sorry, I don't know where I read 8 from. That was my own add-on. That is not written here. Not 8. Notable as she previously earned Tony nominations for each, not 8, of her prior Broadway opening credits.
I don't even think she's
I was like,
done
Wicked, If Then, and that's probably it.
Rent.
Since winning for Thoroughly Modern Millie in 2002, Sutton Foster has been nominated for each of her subsequent Broadway shows. She opened with 2 exceptions: Young Frankenstein in 2008 and now Once Upon a Mattress. 3 of this year's nominees for Best Musical, Dead Outlaw, Maybe Happy Ending, and Operation Mincemeat, are completely original. This is the first time that this has happened since 2022.
That's really exciting.
Just in Time managed to receive 6 nominations overall, despite missing out on Best Musical. The same scenario happened for Bullets Over Broadway in 2014.
I think it's just too tight. Do you think that was the 6th, or do you think Real Women Have Curves would edge out Just in Time?
I think Real Women Have Curves maybe opened too late. But Just in Time also opened like 2 days before that, so it's really hard to say.
But I think maybe Just in Time is a little more digestible, being that it's about a person that we're somewhat familiar with music we're somewhat familiar with, like we know what it is. Whereas like Real Women Have Curves is a bit more like unknown.
Yeah. This one is kind of interesting. Since the Tonys were established in 1947, about 7 Broadway revivals of Romeo and Juliet were eligible for nominations, but none have ever received bids until this year.
Wow.
But both Rachel Zegler and Kit...
Snubbed.
What's his name? Kit Connor. Yeah, we're snubbed.
Connor.
Audra McDonald received her 11th career nomination, which is crazy. After having previously contended for Best Featured Actress in a Musical twice for her performance in Disaster and Company, Jen Simard earns her first nomination for Lead.
Wow.
Fun. Cola Scola is the 4th trans non-binary performer to receive a Tony nomination for acting, following L. Morgan Lee and J. Harrison Gee and Alex Newell. The latter 2 ended up winning their respective races. What else is interesting here? Best Featured Actress in a Musical consists of all first-time nominees.
Wow, that's nice.
The last time this happened was 2020, but that was a fake year, so can we even count that?
Sorry to Lauren Patton, who won. But yeah, that's fake.
And yeah, the last one is, Will Arnson giving Sean Baker is the third individual to earn nominations in the categories of Best Book of a Musical, Best Score, Best Orchestrations for the same show in the same year. The previous two were Dave Malloy for Natasha Peer and the Great Comet of 1812 and Justin Levine for The Outsiders last year. So anyway, that is part 1 of our Tony nominations episode, just based on the acting categories. And we will be back next week. You don't have to wait 2 weeks for part 2, which is kind of the technical awards here and also Best New Musical. So stick around for next week's episode. But in the meantime, you can go back and listen to our other episodes by subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a comment.
And you can follow us at Off to B-Way Podcast on Instagram and Off to Broadway on TikTok.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.